Welcome to the Classroom Brew podcast. The teacher podcast is a little bit like drunk history. But wait, do you guys actually drink while you record episodes? Yeah. Actually. Yeah. All right, welcome back to Classroom Brew. This is episode 80-something at this point. If you haven't already, make sure you rate and review whatever app you're listening in. If you want to reach out, we are classroombrew@gmail.com or at classroombrew on your favorite social media. For this week, I'm actually pretty excited because we have not just a teacher, but someone that also has a side gig and a podcast. So I'd like you guys all to meet Stacey. Stacey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I'm on spring break, so this is that time of the year where I can kind of relax. Oh, nice. That's perfect. I know. Yeah, you said you were like, Tuesday at 2 is good. And I was like, oh, sweet. She must be on break. Either that or it's going to be a very lively conversation with a lot of background noise.
Exactly. Fire alarms and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. Could you imagine that, like mid-podcast that you're doing at a school when you got to evacuate all the kids? Like, everybody to the door. So, Stacey, you have a podcast. It's called Side Hustle Teachers.
I do.
But what's your goal for Side Hustle Teachers, or what do you like to, spread to your audience if they listen in?
Well, the most important thing I think is that there are so many teachers who are struggling with a lot of aspects of teaching right now, whether it be the financial piece that, teaching is not exactly a way to get rich quick. Mm-hmm. Or if it's just that teaching seems to be consuming their whole life, or if it's a matter of, I'm not sure that this is what I want to do for the next 20 or 30 years. Mm-hmm. And so whatever their reason for coming to me, what I like to do is I like to sort of give them options and help a lot of teachers understand that we have some crazy skills that will help us in pretty much anything we want to do. Sure. And, what I found myself when I started my side hustles, it actually made me a better teacher because I wasn't so myopic about education. Like, the teacher brain, you just get into it and you're thinking about this and you're thinking about your kids all the time and you're thinking about the newest educational theory or initiative that you are either on board with or being forced to be on board with. And, it just sort of takes over your life. And when I started my side hustle 7 years ago, that really helped me think about something else and get my mind off teaching. And when I was in the classroom, I was able to really be in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, the money doesn't hurt either.
Right. I'm with you. No, I recently went back to my graduate school, like on campus and things like that. And it really did put things in perspective. So I 100% see where you're at with, or you ever go to like a professional development and they're like, I want you to take the perspective of a student, but you can almost never do that. Like you always go into teacher mode, like, well, what if we did this or this or this?
Yes.
So how long have you been teaching them?
This is my 18th year teaching.
18th year. And you started your side hustle about 7-8 years ago, right?
Yeah, my first one was 7 years ago, and it was an utter disaster.
So. What made it go? Was it because of the balance of teaching and the side hustle, or was it just in general?
It was a lot of things. It was, I had just had my daughter at that point, and she was a preemie, so she had some issues of her own that we had to deal with. And then we had, going back to school as a teacher after you've had a baby is like not the most fun thing in the world. Right. And yeah, it just wasn't a good fit. And I realized looking back that I wasn't listening to my gut, and my gut was telling me this is a horrible thing. This is not the right thing for you to do. But fortunately it led me to the right thing, or the first right thing. So
yeah. So when you say that it was a struggle initially, you have like an assistant now, right? I think her name's Lori.
I do, yeah.
Okay. Has that kind of helped? Like, what does she usually do to kind of help balance those things out? Like, what are her responsibilities? Because it seems I would love to have an assistant. That sounds great.
I know.
I had a buddy that helped me for a little bit, but that seems fantastic.
Yeah, she's awesome. Her job primarily is she reaches out to other hosts like you and, tries to spread the word about what I'm doing so I can be guests and I can talk to other teachers or other business people. I have an upcoming launch for my side hustle summer camp program.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going to help me out when I'm doing the webinars for that. So she's going to be in the chat answering questions, and she's going to be letting me know if there's technical problems. And then when I have an Ask Me Anything call before the whole thing closes up, she's going to be again in the chat on the Facebook Live, but she'll also be sort of summarizing everything so that I can send out all the questions and the answers to everybody the next day so that we can get the information out there. So yeah, she does a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and I seriously don't know how I would do it without her.
How'd you get in touch with her or in contact with her?
I was in a group on Facebook for VAs, for people who are virtual assistants, and
Gotcha.
I've actually since left the group because that's not the direction I'm going in, but I posted in there I'm looking for a VA, and I figured that would be a target rich environment.
Yeah.
So yeah, she responded, and after a few interviews with a few people, she was clearly a good fit for what we were trying to do here. So
yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah.
So I guess going back to school, what grade or grades do you teach?
I teach 6, 7, and 8. I'm a music teacher. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, I have all the kids who aren't in band. So
okay. The ones that are really motivated then?
They can be. We started ukulele this year, and it's amazing how interested even like the tough jock kids are. Like, I got a kid who's got a broken collarbone from lacrosse, and his biggest question is, can I still play the ukulele, when he walked in the room?
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, it can be interesting trying to find ways to reach the kids who are only there because they have to be. But
sure.
Yeah, I love my hormonal preteens. So
hormonal preteens, yeah. Well, that's the instrument that I think I've picked up like 30 times. Like, I'm going to learn, and then it gets dropped, and not. Then I don't. I think I have 2 at some point. I think I have 2 ukuleles sitting around somewhere, but I haven't really quite gotten to it. But
yeah.
Someday.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is my own daughter won't learn from me, but I've got like 400 kids at school that will. So
yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. She's like, Mom, I don't want to learn from you. Does she go to the same school that you teach at?
No, we live in a different town. So she goes to a separate place, which I think is better for all of us.
Okay. It's interesting because I've had a few people on that are also music teachers. I just went to like a Robbie Hicks music teacher. There's a friend of mine that wants to be on at some point, music teacher. And then I just did a professional studio for like a video podcast that by the time our episode comes out, it'll already be out. But the guy that runs the studio, he's like, oh yeah, I also have a residency. And he goes from school to school teaching music, which is, I'm not sure if it's the creativity, but I feel like a lot of music teachers have some sort of a, not to use your title, but side hustle to kind of keep themselves going.
I feel like sometimes we just can't sit still. So
yeah, I think so. We have to have some sort of creative outlet. Well, and it's crazy because once you really get comfortable with it, especially once you get past your first few years, you have this like above or like the larger picture in mind, right? So you can kind of focus on other things like your hobbies or side hustles and things like that. But so I guess, how do you, in terms of being a music teacher, are there certain like initiatives or things that you're kind of, because a lot of times there's things I want to do in my classroom, but I'm kind of forced inadvertently, like you're not forced, but you're forced. Yeah. How much autonomy do you have as a music teacher?
I'd say a fair bit. We always have the whole school thing. We went to a new evaluation system a couple of years ago that's like pretty intense. And there's a whole school goal, and there's a parent goal, and there's our individual SLOs, and it's just an onslaught of initials, but there's
and if you fall behind on those initials, you'll be way out of date.
Yeah, exactly. So, we have all of these things. I think my principal does a pretty good job of understanding that we're not like the core teachers. And because we don't have a subject that's necessarily tested, it's one of those things where we have a little bit more freedom. But then we had something this year with a technology privacy law that came into effect that about December, I was told that my curriculum was no longer allowed to be used because it doesn't comply with this new data law. So we're going to have you rewrite your entire curriculum mid-year.
Oh, God.
So
brutal.
Yeah, everybody feels it.
Was it like a video thing or audio and like names were being used, or what was it that was?
No, we just have a law that says that every company that is doing any business with any school district has to sign a contract stating what will happen if there is a breach of student data and what they do with student data.
Got it.
And I agree with it on principle, but when it affects your classroom, you kind of want to shake your fist at somebody.
Sure.
But yeah, it was just a company that I was using. I was doing keyboards primarily, and it was an iPad-based program, and the keyboards would listen to the iPads and the vice versa, and the kids could play, and it would give them instant feedback, and it was fabulous, but the company wouldn't sign the contract. So
Gotcha. So that puts
was
you
the end of that.
afloat. Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned too, there's in your observation, like professional responsibilities and things like that, there's a parent goal too. Does that mean that you have pretty good parent engagement in what state are you in? I'm sorry.
Connecticut.
Is there pretty good parent engagement? Because like we just had our report card pickup, which is like our parent teacher conferences, and we're all in one room. And I think maybe 5 families came to see me.
Oh gosh.
Do you get pretty good engagement?
As a school, I think we do. The way the parent goal works is that in the spring, the school has to send out a survey to all the parents in the district, and they really push it hard, like fill this out. If you don't, we're going to get in trouble. And then they base a goal next year that the whole school has to meet on what the parents say is in need of improvement.
Sure. It's almost like an IEP goal, but I'm assuming for all kids, right? Like general ed as well. Yeah.
Like this year we're working on feedback. Like parents think that they don't know enough about how feedback is used in the classrooms.
Okay.
So,
that's interesting. That's actually kind of, I mean, I'm sure it's probably a hurdle in itself, but I feel like I've offered feedback on like at parent conferences, like the few that show up, and it's never the one that you really wanted to show up, right? But you give them the feedback, like, I'm a little concerned. Your student seems to be very challenging to redirection. And then that parent will like start swearing at you, like, well, what the F do you mean? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, I see where you get it now. 100% understand. Let's save this conversation for later in life. Yeah. So that's where I can see that.
That's when you meet the tree.
Yes, exactly. And they might not be a good tree, but even still.
Yeah.
So I guess if you have your eye, first on your career and also on, I got to change my curriculum mid-year, but you also have this, it's like a mentoring thing too, right? With Side Hustle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I meet with people. I have clients that I work with one-on-one, and I have this program that's going to be, it's an 8-week program over summer vacation. So if you want to get your business up and running, we'll do all the back end stuff. We'll get your content planned out and your visibility plan and all that stuff over the 8 weeks of summer, so that when you go back in the fall, or in some cases, some people don't go back in like late July, which is insane to me. But, when you go back to school, you have all the pieces in place.
Sure.
So that you can just sort of pick up and you can adjust for, and I think this is where it really helps having a teacher, because, the first few weeks of school, you're not doing anything but thinking about school, because
right.
You're setting up your classroom, you're getting to know the kids, you're, figuring out what went missing over summer vacation, all those things. And, so you have to have a plan in place on how to deal with that. So as a teacher helping other teachers, it's nice to have that understanding and that sort of piece of the puzzle that I haven't found in any podcast or website or a YouTube guru or anything else that I've looked at in many, many, many years.
Yeah. Well, and again, especially since we wear so many hats, you would think that this would be a thing, but I guess that's good for you to kind of get in on the ground floor when there's nothing else like it right now.
Yeah, I'm not crying about that.
Now, do you see yourself eventually or at some point transitioning away from education to just focus on like making it your main hustle, I guess you could call it?
Yeah. I always say it depends on the day. So
yes,
there are some days when I go home and I'm like, that's it. I'm quitting. I'm just doing this full time. And then there are some days when I go home and I'm like, what side hustle? Life is great. So
right.
Yeah, I think right now what I'd really like to do is just work part-time. The way our schedule is set up is that I see my 8th and 7th graders in the morning, and that's what I really, 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 really love. So I'd love to do the 7th and 8th graders in the morning and then go home and have the afternoons to work on business stuff. But
Sure.
Yeah, we'll see.
I could see that. Do you ever do like, as a music teacher, do you like, is one of your side hustles like teaching kids at their home, or they come to you, like music lessons or anything like that?
I used to do that. I guess
Okay.
that was actually my first side hustle, but
Sure. It
yeah,
seems
no,
like the
I
obvious one for a music teacher.
hated it. I
That bad?
Oh
What was the
God, I
main,
hate it.
what was the main struggle?
It was just, the lack of practice. And this is
Sure.
scary. My old piano teacher retired like 15 years ago, and I'd been teaching, and I was teaching students privately. And when he retired, I sent him a congratulations card. I was like, that's wonderful. You worked really hard. I'm so sorry for all the times I didn't practice and made you sit there and struggle through my lessons, because
Sure.
I totally get it. Yeah. It was just not my cup of tea.
Yeah. I remember when we used to have we had a practice schedule. It was like a little grid sheet, and our parent had to sign it. And one of my siblings, my older siblings, she would write in like, oh, I did 0 minutes. And then my parent would sign it, but then she would add in like a 1 and 0. So she had 100 minutes. Genius.
Clever.
I found that, and I think one or maybe even both of my former band teachers, I did it in middle school. They might listen, so maybe this is bad, but every so often I would just kind of erase the date and change it and be like, oh, I lost my sheet the other time. So they didn't really check it, but that's got to be a staple for music teachers. They're used to people not actually practicing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a frustration, but I figure if they're not going to do their homework for anybody else, then I really shouldn't expect to be any different.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you there. So where is your podcast at right now? So you said you're about to start season 2 in the fall.
Yeah, well, as we're recording this, we're just finishing up season 1. That'll end in mid-May when the doors close for Side Hustle Summer Camp, and then I'm going to get that all set. But I'll be recording season 2 over the summer so that I can release it in the fall. So
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those content things that I teach other people to do that I'm trying to do myself.
Right. I'll say I do mine. I even go through the summer, just like I'm a weekly release, and I kind of wish I had done it as seasons, but now it's like, we're already a year and a half in. Let's just keep up with it. So that might have bite myself in the foot a little bit, but that's just how it goes.
As long as you like to do it, it's all good.
Well, and I was talking to my buddy, Brian. He has a podcast, the Lazy Teacher podcast.
Yep.
We were thinking like, man, if this ever takes off, like that'd be fantastic if it became like our full hustle, but then my material's all gone. You know what I mean? Like for my format, it's basically, let's tell like funny stories and stuff over a couple of beers in the classroom.
Yep.
Abandon that. It's gone. Like the reservoir of memories, it can only last so long before you use everything. You know what I mean? But
that is true. Although if you have guests on, then they can tell their funny stories, and those are never ending.
There you go. That could be it. Yeah. That would work 100%. There's some stories though that, have you ever had like a guest on and you're like, oh, I probably can't use that, where they tell a story? Like it's really good and it's fun in the moment, but you're like, that's cut. That one's cut.
Yeah. I had a podcast before this one. I was actually focusing on moms before this, and I just kept getting called back to work with teachers, like that little string inside your, I don't know, heart, gut, head, whatever, that, and I was just like, but I had a guest on there, then she just, there was nothing wrong with it. Every time I'd have a new interview, I'd be like, oh, well, I'll just put her off, and I'll just put her off. And it turned out never getting published because it just wasn't great. There was something off.
Sure. Well, and I also found too, this is why I asked a buddy of mine to kind of help out with my social media and email and stuff. Every so often you get this one weird person that tries to contact you and you're like, I don't want to interact with this person right now. So it's like, hey, can you handle that for me? And I'll just be over here. That's kind of the one thing I've been running into a lot.
Yeah. Especially as you start to get known and you start to get out there more, that, the weirdos come out of the wall.
Yeah. I had this cool moment where I was, someone was like, oh my God, that's the guy. Cause I went to like a buddy of mine's stand-up performance. And, oh my God, you're the guy that was reposted by him. And I was like, oh my God, the one and only time I'll be recognized. There's also when I was like on my way to the bathroom too. So I was like, I guess this is a moment, but like not the best moment, but I'll take it. It'll never happen again. But that was interesting.
At least it wasn't in the bathroom.
That's true. There are way worse ways to go. Like Kevin Hart had a fan that like waited for him when he was like in a stall. Like, can I get a picture with you? And he's like, come on, man, like give me a minute. Let's wait till I'm out of here. That's kind of how it goes. But yeah.
Oh boy.
So Stacey, where can they check out not only your podcast, but where can they also check out or get in touch with you at Side Hustle Teachers?
So you can go to side-hustle-teachers.com, and that's pretty much where all my content and podcast episodes and blog posts and all that stuff live. I also have a really active Facebook group where, as of today, we're at over 800 members. So
there you go.
Yeah, which for 3 months is not too shabby. I was actually kind of expecting it to still be around like 40. So I'm struggling with the super fast growth, but that's just on Facebook. You can search for Side Hustle Teachers, and that's pretty much it.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for being on. This was a nice little spring break kind of recording type of thing. So I appreciate that. Everybody else, make sure, check out Stacey's podcast, check out Side Hustle Teachers. If you'd like to be on the show, you can reach us classroombrew@gmail.com, as well as at classroombrew on social media. Rate and review, all that good stuff. Again, subscribe to Side Hustle Teachers. And then, of course, until next week, class dismissed.